Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. A familiar face, a familiar guest. You know, we've got a lot to talk about, so it's the third episode. Today is going to be more focused on, we're going to talk about 9 to 5. We got points to talk about, like, entrepreneurial, like, our failures, becoming entrepreneurs. And, you know, I'm happy to have you here again.
Thank you very much, Zach. Very good morning. I know we were just in the car coming in and we had a lot of discussion points that we wanted to talk about, a lot to be said today on this chair. I missed the chair as well. I hope that chair missed me on there. So let's see where the conversation takes us.
Yes, please. I mean, let's start off the conversation talking about, I think a big point I want to talk about this episode is 9 to 5s, you know? It's a massive topic and a lot of people talk about it.
Yes.
But, like, a lot of people feel like they're trapped in a 9 to 5. So, like, in your opinion, and in both of our opinions, actually, I want to touch on the topic as well. Why do people feel like they're trapped in a 9 to 5? And, like, what stops them from leaving the 9 to 5, you know?
Well, you're going to take me down memory lane already, Zach, because when I was in my 9 to 5, I just remember a very dark days in my head. I wasn't very happy. I was quite depressed as a person, and I just wanted to escape. Every day got worse and worse. I was in a boiler room setup, so I had to get to the office for 7 a.m. I was commuting for an hour, so I had to wake up, you know, nearly 5:30 in the morning, and getting into the office straight away, the CEO was very strict, and we would have a very high labor turnover, meaning he would fire very quickly. So if you didn't do what was required, if you weren't meeting your targets, you were going to get fired. And that essentially had a very bad mindset in my head. Like, I was always under pressure, you know, I wasn't very happy. And from 7 to 8 a.m. in the morning, we'd be doing pitch training. So it was a sales role. We were paid based on how well we performed on the phones with our clients. So everyone in the office would pitch each other, and then we would scrutinize each other. We'd give each other really tough feedback and criticism. But that inevitably led us to improve a lot faster. Whilst it was very good and rewarding, it was still very hard on my mental health because the hours were so long. I'd finish the office at 7 p.m. I'd get home at 8. I wouldn't even have time to, you know, wind down or go gym at some point. So I worked like that for a couple of weeks and then a couple of months as well. And it just became too much on my health, on my social life. And I had to make a decision. And every day I just wanted to escape. So in the background, I started thinking, what can I do to escape? I started reading books and I started talking to people, and it seemed as though everyone our age is also going through the same problem. You know, we come out of uni and we go straight into a role that we're not happy with. And I was literally speaking to someone yesterday and they were telling me, I just don't want to go to sleep because I don't want to wake up for work in the morning. And I was thinking that I completely relate to that because I remember that phase of my life.
Yeah. I mean, like, 9 to 5... some people generally enjoy the 9 to 5. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, everybody should be striving to be, like, escaping their job, because some people are in their dream jobs. Even the people here at the studio, they absolutely love what they do. They're amazing people, amazing energy and stuff like that. And, like, there's nothing wrong with loving what you do. Like, but for people, like, you know, we talk to people in your job and when I was back at uni, that they always talk about wanting to become, like, financially, like, free, or, like, they want to change, like, the world. And then they get into a 9 to 5, like you're talking about. And then you sort of get, like, trapped into that 9 to 5. Like, for example, I remember you telling me about your job, and you were in this, like, boiler room, like you just said. And you had friends in your job, and amazing salespeople, like, really talented. But then they might not necessarily leave. Like, they sort of get stuck in that job. You know, you were talking about, like, wanting to leave, and you actually did leave. But why do people get, like, stuck in that job and they don't leave? Like, they could be in that job for, like, 40 years.
I remember this very well. To be honest, the first and foremost, the reason why I got into that job in the first place, because when I met the team, I was very impressed. They had young people, 24-year-olds, that were extremely talented at what they do. And I saw them and I saw the office, the culture, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. And you're 100% right. They didn't actually leave and they weren't ultimately happy. And yes, they were making good money for their ages, but the reason they didn't leave is because they were promised the world by the CEO, and the CEO promised them shares in the company if you perform well, promotions and the commission as well. So I think the main reason why people don't leave is because of the fear of losing that monthly paycheck and the greed of having that monthly paycheck in your mind of X amount of money coming into your account. and you need that money there as a safety blanket, especially when you have commitments, bills, maybe mortgage, and it's worse when you have kids as well. So they're completely trapped.
Yeah, so it's like that fear of losing that like safety aspect of having that sort of income, like especially if you've got bills to pay. But then didn't you, like, for example, you were in a job that was very similar sales, right? And then you left that sales job, and then were you like approached by or like headhunted by another firm, and then you sort of even got like more trapped because you're like, oh, I'm getting like sort of a promotion, which was another job, and then you left that one as well, even though you got sort of an increased pay, right?
I think everyone who works in the corporate world knows that it's very easy to get headhunted or to get recruited from a recruiter or get approached on LinkedIn specifically as well with messages of a lot of opportunities. The more you stay in the industry, the more you build your portfolio on LinkedIn, the more you'll get approached and have opportunities come your way. So it's very easy to kind of stay in the corporate life.
Like a loop.
It's like a loop, and you could easily get fed into it. So for me, it was more so, do I want this life or do I want a completely different side of life?
And again, I just want to emphasize the point on like, we both know that some people are in their dream job in a nine, like just because they work on 9 to 5 doesn't mean you're not in your dream job. Do you know what I mean? Like we know that being people like who have met so many different faces and stuff. So we don't sit here and judge people for being like in 9 to 5s or anything like that. Like it has nothing to do with that. It's more on the topic of conversation where it's like, if you are in a 9 to 5 and it's not what you want to do, how he escaped and why people don't escape. That's sort of what we're talking about. And also, like, you know, when you go in on trains for 9 to 5, for example, like I have loads of friends who like left my school and did like apprenticeships. Apprenticeships is a huge way, like people get involved in like sort of into a job, and then they sort of get into that like that promotion sort of system where like they're staying in and they want to get to the next paycheck and stuff like that. But then you go on the trains and you see like the way they look and stuff, and it makes me like really like, do you know what I mean? Like,
no, I know what you mean.
Tired.
You're getting death stares from everyone, really. I remember my train. What I used to take was the Jubilee line, and I had to switch at West Ham and then go on the Central line. And everybody was just like, most people, I'm not going to lie, they were probably sleeping. so they were catching up on the sleep on the commute, and it was very busy. It was very, very busy. But don't get me wrong, Zach, there's definitely, you know, a podcast I was listening to recently, and the gentleman running the podcast, he done very well in the corporate world because he was at Google X and he became CFO or CHO or something like this. And he then was very well connected to prime ministers because of his status. So he was very well connected, and now he's using his influence to actually teach people a lot of things about happiness. So his podcast is about happiness, and he's promoting the podcast because he knows these world leaders.
Yeah. So it's like, depending, but then to become like a CFO or a massive role like that in the corporate world, it's like a top 0.00001% chance of, not that you can't strive to do that, but I just mean it's very like, there's more likelihood of you getting the same income if that's what you want, if it's money or financial freedom, by doing your own thing. There's a way more possibility of it occurring than working to become like a CEO of a firm that's already established.
Definitely. He was a massive prodigy. He had to be extremely talented, and he was, you know, he was one of those individuals who is always coding, always behind the screen. He was extremely talented, and therefore he was able to promote himself faster in the company. And whereas normally it would take someone 10, 15, 20 years to reach the top, I know stories of someone working at Credit Suisse, and she was there for 20 years, and when the company went down, the company offered her a £150 Amazon voucher.
No way.
No support whatsoever. So you really are kind of very replaceable in the eyes of these companies, and I didn't feel valued anymore. I didn't feel respected. I was operating with full integrity in my role, and for me, obviously, I was in a sales job, so I had to communicate with clients. So the company said we could have WhatsApp and talk to our clients. I downloaded WhatsApp on my work laptop and was messaging a client for lunch. And then my manager came and she told me off about working on my work laptop on WhatsApp and why is it there. I kind of questioned the whole existence of why WhatsApp can be downloaded on the work laptop anyway. And even though I was performing very well, I was one of the youngest in the team, I didn't feel valued, I wanted more, and I knew what my worth was. And it's only then, until then, I had thoughts of leaving that role and, thinking about doing something else.
Yeah, I think it starts like earlier on in like the university / sixth form time, like when they teach you about like leaving and you get a job and sort of you get stuck in that like loop. And I see a lot of parents as well, like they sort of force their children into positions because the idea of being like an entrepreneur isn't like, if you go up to your parents and like, oh, I want to become an entrepreneur and change some aspect of the world or start a business, they won't, like, it's hard for them to support you, especially if you're not in a really like financially stable position, because you could be chasing this dream for years before you sort of hit the nail on the head with a business. So it's so much more comfortable from having like the support of your parents just to go into a job, especially, do you know what I mean? So I think the idea of getting stuck in that sort of that mindset of chasing the next goal and chasing the next paycheck starts off so early on. Not even as soon as you get the job, okay, you're going to get headhunted. The CEO is going to be like, you're on commission. Like, if you do this month, you have a chance of hitting this role. It starts so much earlier on. When you're in uni and they're teaching you about you have those career days where I remember going in uni and there was a career day. In fact, I have a funny story about this. I remember being in uni and I'm sitting there. So for you guys that don't know, I was actually doing engineering at KCL way before I started this business. And I remember I was sitting in the uni hall and like during the lecture, a person came in and was like, hello engineers, you guys are going to be good, XYZ, like bigging us up. If you have any ideas, because from an engineering standpoint, you're always trying to design revolutionary ideas, change the world. You might look at this cup and be like, this needs to be adjusted here and you can change blah, 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 blah. And they were like, if you have any ideas, here's our brochure, take this brochure, approach us, and for any good ideas, we'll give you £3,000 or £2,000, depending on how good the idea was. And I was like, wow, so rather than me or any of us going out of our way and sort of building upon the idea that we had ourselves, we approach a company, they steal the idea, and then you get like £3,000 out of it. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
And it's just a weird way. I was just thinking, I was like, this is so strange. Like, why wouldn't they like push you to sort of make a company or do it yourself? Instead, there's just a company that's like sitting outside my lecture hall, giving out brochures, being like, here, you can do it using us. We'll steal your idea and make millions out of it. It's just so strange.
I really agree. And to be honest, I know the youthful generation in the universities, those are the creative ones. Those are the ones who are going to have the ideas. And the way they structured the whole system like that, where they steal the ideas, is just not incentivizing people to chase their goals and chase their dreams. And I really do think that our system nowadays with the school and university is pushing us to just be comfortable. And I'm sure you can agree, Zach, it's the mindset that has to be there first before you could escape any 9-to-5 or anything you're unhappy with. It's all about shifting your paradigm and seeing things from a different lens. So for us, it would have been so comfortable to stay in a place where, we're getting the money that we need, there's a roof over our heads. But it was a harder decision for us to take a leap of faith, have a risk-taking element and go for our true goals.
Yeah. But then again, looking at like a standpoint of paying your bills, I know somebody who's like got kids and a wife and they're in a good job, a pretty decent job in terms of the corporate world, but like they have massive amounts of mortgages to pay because of all the interest rates going up.
Yeah. So
for them to leave that job, like they will be paying that mortgage for like 10, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. So how are they expected? Like, even from the standpoint and looking out on a bird's eye view, how would they be expected to leave that corporate role, knowing that if they don't succeed in an entrepreneurial standpoint, there will be all of their payments will not be paid. They'll have more. The house probably gets taken away because they've got a mortgage. It's such a big risk, and the way the system traps you into that job, it's like, is it intentional or is it just like an unfortunate series of events? It's so hard to like sit here and depict like what's going on. It's so strange, like the way the world's turned out. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I believe that the system has been designed to make people unhappy and to make people fail. And a lot of people nowadays aren't able to take risks purely because they can't. And if, even I was in their shoes, and had to go about all of that, looking after my family, I probably wouldn't want to either. So at the end of the day, I think everyone has to be out there for themselves. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to tell you, you have to be switched on. You have to know about how finances work. You have to know about how the world works, how the money goes around in the world. You have to go out there and reach that knowledge for yourself and learn about what you need to learn. You have to be book smart. You have to be street smart. You have to have a little bit of everything and be informed to make a decision. But that initial decision just comes from your mind of wanting more and how ambitious you are and how much you blame other people or how much you blame yourself for your own situation.
Yeah. Especially being in the UK, you see so many people that try to escape the 9 to 5, or they've just sort of started their own entrepreneurial journey. They all like move to different countries now, especially like we just talked about mortgages and being like trapped with like loads of bills and stuff. They like move to Dubai, or they move to like Cyprus, or they move to a different country. And it's just from a standpoint of, we grew up here, like we spent most of our life in this country. I feel like from not even just mortgage payments or stuff like that, but even from like an educational standpoint, the company, the world is, or this country, sorry, is just sort of going downhill.
Oh, 100%. I think I told you already, Zach, that I've had my phone snatched 3 times in London. And the other day, I was walking in London, central London, in Leicester Square at night time, and there was about a group of 6 guys who come up to me, and they snatched my phone again. And this time, I went into the guy's pocket and took it out again, and then just ran off. And the whole experience was just very dirty, to be honest. And yeah, I just had thoughts that I don't want to be in this country. What has this world come to? And I wouldn't want to raise my kids here. I wouldn't want to send my daughter, into the streets like this, even on a normal, Sunday late evening. That shouldn't be the case. And if you look at it, the world is changing extremely fast. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you look, Dubai wasn't even developed the way it's developed now. So we can see the world is changing extremely fast, and we have to adapt with it.
Yeah. I remember when I was on holiday this summer, I went to the cinema, and I was watching the new Deadpool and Wolverine. And when I went to the cinema, there was just it wasn't in the UK, it was in Cyprus. And all of the people there were just there with their girlfriends and boyfriends, and they were all going on dates. And literally like 2 or 3 days ago, I went to the cinema in the UK, completely different experience. I remember going in, and it was pretty packed cinema. It was a pretty big film. And all of the kids, I say kids, but they're not much younger than me, but like all of the teenagers were like scrolling on their phone the whole episode. All their phones were on. They were listening to voice notes. They couldn't concentrate on the film. They were so like disrespectful. There was a people there with their older people trying to enjoy the film, and they were just talking throughout the whole film, like no respect for anyone. And it wasn't just one group of people. Like obviously you're gonna get this sort of thing everywhere. I'm talking about like every single row, because I was quite high up. I was looking down, and I couldn't even concentrate on the film. They had no, like when I was young, going to the films with my mum or my friends, I would be like so scared to like distract anyone or like do. And now they're just like openly just scrolling. They can't focus on anything, and because they're always scrolling on TikTok, they can't focus on things. That's what I've realized. It's really scary the way they. Because if the film is not on like 3 times speed, like this is like just running through, they can't just sit down and like watch a film. So that's as simple things like that.
It's killed the attention spans. It really has. And growing up, we have this problem with technology. And even now, I recently went to Apple Store and I saw the virtual reality headset. I had a little session for 30 minutes to try it on and see what's going on with this technology. Staggering. It was when I wore the headset, I could see in 4D.
Yeah.
The person in real life. And I was amazed. It's like on technology now, you can basically simulate a real life scenario. And with the Apple VR, I don't know, but you should definitely try it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible what's going on and how the future's changing with the electric cars, flying cars, with drones, with the VRs. It's going in that direction, and it's changing the attention spans of people. It's changing how we think. I know now some teenagers can't even study because of their attention spans being so low. When they sit down with a piece of paper and a pen, they're gone.
Yeah, I know. It's got to the point now, I was speaking to a friend, that the schools actually teach using shorts.
Oh,
So, like, rather than scrolling on TikTok and just seeing, like, viral videos, if you're, like, doing biology, for example, there'll be shorts on biology. So they'll give you, like, little clips to watch, and they'll all be, like, biology related for your module. So you'll scroll through, and they'll be teaching you, like, this is about microorganisms, and it'll be like a 30-second clip, 2 times speed, and then because they can't focus on things, it's actually so messed up.
it's crazy because when you think about it, every time you go on social media on a scroll, maybe you're sitting there, you end up spending, let's say, 40 minutes. But actually, after 40 minutes, you think about, what did I watch? What was that one piece of like good video? You can't remember. You can't even remember what you're watching. So therefore, you just have to just pull the plug one day, you know, just delete the app.
I know, it's terrible. And it even pushes like propaganda on people. You might be educated on something that's completely untrue, and you believe it. So many people believe the biggest and I've fallen into that trap as well, believing just nonsense, just because like you think it's real. And then you start seeing more and more TikToks saying the same point. It's so obvious. It's so like easy to fall into that trap.
Definitely. I personally think, especially for the younger generation now growing up, who see fake images of influencers or influencers using Photoshop or, you know, a picture or their social media making their life look so good. Nowadays, more and more so, you're seeing people with eating disorders and depression and mental health issues because they're comparing their lifestyles or the way they look to these people on social media who are glamorizing what they're up to and actually sometimes are the depressed people themselves.
Yeah. And even from like an AI standpoint, and that's I like that idea or that point that you just made, because from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's so easy to like look at people's lives and see the cars, see the money, and want to live that life. But it might not be that they're like, it's so important to sit down, and we always talk about this, and find out like who you are as a person, what you want to do. Don't just scroll on Instagram or TikTok and be like, oh, this guy's got like all this stuff from trading, I want to become a trader. It shouldn't be like that. Like, you need to find out what you want to do, what your passions are.
%. I believe this massively, and I believe you shouldn't compare yourself to someone else. You should compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And as long as you're having that improvement, 1% in every bucket, every day, whether it's the way you look, the way you speak, the way you dress, the knowledge you have, if you're improving that every single day by 1%, then you will become the best version of yourself. And if you just stay focused on comparing yourself to yourself rather than to other people, you will naturally be happier because you're going to focus on the things that you can control rather than focusing on the things you can't control.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel we always talk about it, finding yourself. Did you ever, I feel like you had a little bit of trouble sort of finding out not what you wanted to do, because you always knew what you wanted to do from the get-go, but just who you were like as a person. I always feel like there's such a big point to make about finding who you are. And you obviously, do you feel like you had, I mean, we always talk about it on off camera, but do you find like you still struggle like to find who you are as a person, even though you're so far in your career and you've got so much stuff going on? Do you still sit there and be like, what do I want, or who am I as a person, or not really as much anymore?
Definitely. I think it's a very deep point, and I have had many identity crises in the past, you know, understanding what I want, what type of person I want to be, what I want to do. It became more apparent, you know, of what more that I don't want to do when I was in the industry of working for someone else. And I just knew that that's not for me. I had an identity crisis then, and even sometimes now I try to understand who I am and what I want. So I think that's probably the hardest thing in life, is to understand who you are, and doing things like living by yourself, being more independent and spending time with yourself. These things are going to inevitably make you and help you understand who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So having done more of these things, put myself outside my comfort zone and put myself in places where I wouldn't have normally put myself in, I've learned about what I'm like and how I operate in those environments. I've learned new things about myself and spent more time with myself, and that's helped me to understand who I am. But even to this day, I'm not 100% there, and I don't think I'll ever be, but I just want to constantly learn and understand more about myself every day.
Yeah, it's always like working on yourself. And that's the importance of having like a good friend or a good circle of people around you. Because from my standpoint, because I know, well, I like to think I know like who you are as a person. sometimes if I see you like doing something or you go out because you're a nice guy, like you wouldn't say like no to someone or a friend, or if you meet someone and like, hey, do you want to do this or that, hang out, or you help them with something, you always say yes, and you always make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And at the sacrifice of your own like your own comfortability, you know, you always put them first. And sometimes I feel like you could potentially risk your own not as such like credibility, but you might lose yourself during that path of trying to build new bonds or new friendships. So from an outsider looking in, I always ask you like questions to do with specific things and make sure that you're happy, because sometimes I feel like you might get lost. You know what I mean? And that's from a friendship standpoint, and from because I see you as like my, not just a friend, but as a brother. You know?
Exactly.
So it's so important to have a good friendship, a good circle, and people looking out for you. Do you know what I mean?
A lot of people don't know how powerful it is and how it's really truly shaped my life to have a friendship so strong, like a brotherhood. The synergies in the morning, I mean, we can share a lot about our friendship here. We wake up every day in the morning and we find ourselves in the gym at 7 a.m. and we have to kind of be credible for each other as well, because if you're not there, I'm going to message you. Or if I'm not there, you're going to message me, and I have an obligation to be there. And not only that, but when we're in the session, we're pushing each other. And that synergy that we experience has really shaped my life massively from that level on a gym side, but also from a business side as well. So I want to stress the importance of having that one friendship, you know, that you can work on, where you share the same values, you share the same goals. And it's truly powerful at how fast you can produce results together, because ultimately 2 heads are better than 1. And you've got the shared vision, you've got the shared goals. And when you work on it together, number 1, you're more creative with it. And number 2, you've got your both resources are together, and 2 + 2 = 11.
Yeah. No, yeah. I remember one of the most important things that you like ever told me recently from a business standpoint was, I remember when I was starting one of my businesses, and it was to do with bulk furnishing properties for people like yourself. You know, you're getting into Airbnb, or you just bought off your first property, or you're on your 15th property. No matter what where you are, I would come and I would help you bulk furnish them. That was my business model. And I remember you came to me and was like, why would you want to start at the bottom when you already have so many resources? You can start halfway up the mountain. And ever since you told me that, my outlook on starting businesses has changed. And it's a really good point to make for anyone out there starting a business and you don't know what to do. Look at your circle, look at what skills you have, what you've learned in your life, and start something where you're already going to have a head start. There's no real point in starting from completely ground zero when you can start halfway up.
I 100% agree, and I'm glad you said that, and I'm very intrigued that I'm learning that it made you feel that way, because that's a very important point for me. And to be fair, I think a lot of people, you know, don't have to start from zero. If you look at who you are, even if you have nothing, if you have no money, that doesn't mean you have nothing. Think about the network that you have, the people you know, and how you can be connected to them. Because even if you have no money, if let's say, you know, there's a millionaire or a billionaire and someone was to take every single penny away from them in an instant, these million and billionaires can say that they can build it back in a week. And that is because of their network. So if you're starting out and you think you have no money, you still have resources. So think in a way with what are you grateful for and what do you have, and use those things to the best of your abilities. So for me, I would use contacts that I have contacts with, and I'd reach out to them, I'd tell them my vision, and that's really where it would all start from, because from one conversation, someone can point you in the right direction and tell you where to invest the money. You know, perhaps you could go to a marketing agency to build a website, and that website, because you've been referred over to a bad person, could waste, let's say, like $1,000 worth of the budget. Or you could go to another person and he could do it even better for £500. But it's because you had that connection who told you the right place to go, where you've really kind of avoided a lot of time lost and a lot of mistakes made as well.
Yeah, it's like when you watch, I always used to watch Dragon's Den, and it's like when you pitch them an idea, anyone can give you the money, but it's like you choose somebody who has the best network in the field that you're going into. You know, they're all going to offer you $100,000, for example, but you still sit there and you think, who am I going to choose? It's all the same amount of money, but you're choosing the person who's got the best network for your business, the person who's got the most knowledge in your business. Because in one conversation, you can get 10 years of knowledge, for example, and that's so powerful. We always talk about that. And the power of networking is just insane in business. Crazy. I mean, but yeah, so let's talk about also, we've touched on 9 to 5. If we talk about the beginning of our entrepreneurial journeys and what we did starting out, I think that's a really interesting topic for these guys and these people watching, because we don't really, obviously we talk about what we do, but we don't really talk about the stories and the experiences that we've had. For example, when we first started off, we always knew the power of the internet. We always knew the power of content, and we always wanted to be sort of on the camera, but we were never really like confident speaking, or we never really knew like how to articulate. Well, I definitely didn't. You did more so, but it was more like you didn't want to be perceived the wrong way. I think that was your biggest thing. You always,
it's not easy. Even now, it's not easy, but we know we recognize what we need to do and our goal, and every day we work to get there closer and closer. And if you told me, 2 years ago that you need to be on the camera creating videos, or that's going to really help your development, I would say shut up, basically, But then every day we mentally prepared ourselves for where we want to be. And you say to yourself, if you really, think that something is going to produce results, can you get your mind to be that person and put yourself out there? And, when you look at a lot of people that are inspiring to me, they're also talking about the same things. And this is really helping our development as well.
Yeah. And it's like a funny story. Like the first ever time we ever recorded footage was from one of your units, remember? And we had to record, I swear, it was like a 30-second video. Hamza had me in London for like a solid 5 hours recording a 30-second video. We must have recorded the intro about 17 times.
And the funniest thing was, after it was all edited, I didn't even use that video at all. We had to go again the next week. So the first video is not going to be the greatest video. It's just going to improve one by one. And when you put it out there, then you're able to watch it back. You're able to get really good feedback from people. Even now, I love to ask my close circle of people, how can I improve? What have I done wrong here? Because it's only until you start watching yourself back, then you realize, okay, there's a lot of issues, in what you're saying and how you're saying it.
Yeah, it's all about just being yourself. I mean, when you looked at the video and like when we first got the footage and you were like making me re-record the clips, what were you looking at? Like, what was making you think like, oh, I need to redo this? Like, what in your head?
I was just micro-analyzing every single thing, to the way my hair might have had a flick up, or, I was wearing the wrong thing, or I said the wrong thing, or my voice was too high, or my voice sounded off, or I said the wrong things. Every single thing was just being scrutinized by myself. And what was confusing was that if I showed it to one person, they'd say, oh, this is great. And another person would say, this is absolutely rubbish. What are you doing? So there's a balance as well of how much feedback you can get, because you're not going to be liked by everyone, And there's a quote that I recently heard, and it says, confidence is not, I want everyone to like me. Confidence is, I'll be fine if everyone doesn't.
Wow.
And since I heard that quote, I mean, it hasn't really changed much, but I still obviously scrutinize myself, but it's going in the right direction at least.
Yeah. It was like that one quote that you had. What was that quote again? It was just so confusing.
Yeah, this is the quote. Yeah. So, I am not what I think I am.
Oh, yeah,
I am not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am.
Oh, that quote, yeah, Jesus.
So, a couple of people understand that stream later. Most people don't. But it is a very deep quote, and it's a quote that I really live by as well.
Yeah, if you understand it, for you guys at home, it is a really good quote. I mean, going back to that story of when we were recording that first video for you, I remember you had me riding around London on the boys' bikes, because we were doing multiple destinations. You might think it's just that the unit or his property. We were around the whole of central London. And we ended up, coincidentally, in the middle of, what was it again?
Hyde Park, sort of 420.
Yeah, it was 420, coincidentally. And we're trying to record footage, and it was just everyone was there smoking.
Yeah, ganja.
Yeah, the green, and I was just like, oh my! I had never been there before, nor do I smoke anything. So I used to smoke anything, vapes or anything like that. Not that I have a problem with it. It's just not my cup of tea, to be honest. And I was just like, oh my god, like, what in the earth is going on in this Hyde Park right now? I didn't even know it was an event. I just thought this was a casual day, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was only when Hamza told me, oh, this is the annual sort of smoking.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, well, you know, it was nice walking down there with you because you have a very different outlook on drugs and alcohol. And that kind of makes me want to ask you, Zach, you know, about drugs and alcohol and how they have affected your life and your choices on what you think is right and what you think is wrong.
Yeah. So I don't actually do any drugs at all. It's not from a standpoint of I judge people that do them. It's more, I think it comes from a place where I just value I want to do so much in my life to the point where I don't want to risk getting like sick, or because I've had family members pass away from doing drugs and stuff like that, or cancers, lung cancers. My granddad lost his leg from smoking too much just cigarettes. So I've seen like what it can do, and it's just from a standpoint where I value my life so much to the point where I get like scared from doing a puff on the vape stick. Like I've maybe done it once or twice vaping, and I just get scared. I don't want to get like, I know it's a bit of a far-fetched thought, but I don't want to get like lung cancers and stuff. I'm scared of getting like certain things wrong with me, and it's just not worth the risk for me. I don't see it as I know some people do it for stress purposes, or they might be addicted to the nicotine, and to be honest, they probably would be totally fine. Like smoking vapes and stuff. Close family do it. My family do it. They'll probably be totally fine. But from a standpoint of me just like valuing my life so much, not that they don't value their life, but I just really like scared of getting ill. I think it's more of that standpoint. And also I've got a very addictive personality, so I'd probably just get like addicted to something that it's not good for you, to be honest.
Everyone has a different relationship with alcohol. For me, I believe it slows me down quite a lot. And the next day I'm hungover and I can't operate the same way. You know, it kills your sleep, it kills your whole day. And for me, that's very important. And once I recognized that and actually had a period of my life where I cut it out for 6 months completely, that's when I was able to see astronomical results. It's as though I achieved maybe 2 years worth of progress in 6 months. I was able to read more, I was able to look better, feel better, respect myself more, and actually portray that in the energies that I had in conversations with other people.
Yeah. You know, when we went down like the 420 and there was loads of people smoking weed, because I'm not really like into that sort of that scene, one thing I would say though is like, I feel like obviously people have their own reasoning for smoking. I mean, some people go through the most traumatic things and that's the only way they sort of can escape that like feeling of being in that situation again. But some people I feel like just do it because it's just cool and it's a trend. Like what is that even about? Like why do people even, you know what I mean? Some people just, oh, like, I've got to get it because it's like, you know what I mean? But it's just like, I don't get, like, what is it about? Like,
negative influences. Nowadays, when you have rough areas and crime rates increasing, it's becoming like popular or the social norm to have a zoot. And especially when you're around bad friends and people pushing you in a negative way, and they're doing things that are very addictive and going to give you short forms of pleasure that are easy to take, you're going to want to take it. And if you don't take it, you know, you're publicly going to be seen as like a coward. Yeah. And I think that culture is in a lot of primary schools now, especially in the wrong areas. And that is a problem.
Yeah. And it's not even just smoking the greens. It's like even like laughing gas, stuff like that. You know, you see there's canisters everywhere. And not even just in the UK, there's like crises all over the world of just like kids. And I'd never had that mentality like growing up. Like, oh, of course I was very fortunate and stuff. But even from the start, I went to a private school. I see people who are as fortunate as me, more fortunate than me sometimes.
Oh,
still doing it. Still doing drugs, still doing like all this sort of stuff. I don't know what it's about.
I massively agree. I think on the other side of the spectrum, you see schools that are in less affluent areas having the problem of drugs, but you also do see the problem of drugs in private schools. I'm sure you can agree. When we were at school, you know, we saw the boarders having a lot of these substances, and everyone, you know, it was all going round. It just seemed to be something that people do.
People would just go to the toilet and just do like, God knows what, you know, in the toilets. And even at parties, like we used to have like parties to events, and they would just be sniffing and and even at festivals. Do you ever been to a festival?
Yeah,
and it's everywhere at festivals. But I mean, it's a serious problem. I mean, they need to sort out. But in some countries, smoking is like legalized. It's just in this country, smoking isn't. It's not illegal. But I mean, I guess every place is different. And you see like a lot of people going away and on these holidays. But you know, we don't judge. I mean, we don't judge. If we talk about more as well, do you have any more questions, by the way, about the specific situation or the topics of drugs, alcohol, because it's quite a big. I mean, you've had more experience, because obviously I've only got about like 3 or 4 mates. I mean, you've got like a bigger circle than I do in that topic.
I've seen a lot of people fall off the grid completely by taking substances, and it's not even a case where you can tell them not to take the substances anymore, and you can see so clearly that is the problem. That if you stop just taking drugs and alcohol for 1 second, do you know what you could achieve? Just stop for a month and see how that changes you. I see people who are more themselves when they're on ganja. I see people who are happier, you know, when they're in that form. And that's not normal, you know. Why are you developing your personality high rather than your sober personality?
Yeah, exactly. That's really, it's crazy how such like dependence on those things can happen, especially if you just have no reasoning for it. It's even worse, I think, when that happens, because there's no reason to take the drugs. So let's talk about a little story that I have from my beginning of when I started my first Amazon FBA business. And in that industry, reviews are everything. 1 5-star review can shift your sales from like 50% increase your sales, 100% increase your sales in some scenarios, depending on the product. And to get a 5-star review, I remember me and you would go out of our way, and thank you for joining me on the little drive to across the country. In some scenarios, a problem might have happened during the courier service or the delivery, and we would literally drive with the product to so they could have it on a specific day and hand deliver the product. And during that like sort of the drive, we would literally record ourselves trying to get more comfortable on the camera, and we were like talking about how we would use like TikTok and social media to help people and to share our story. And it's crazy how, you know, in just like a short period of time, how much we've like improved, like on the camera, off the camera, and it's just, I think it's crazy, like so how fast things have changed. This was literally only a couple of years ago.
It's a fun memory. I carry it with me a lot. And looking back at it, there has been so much growth. And what we were doing, you know, renting a van and then going. That was my first time driving a van. And we were on the motorway, and you was recording the behind the scenes. And we were on the way to, I don't know where it was, maybe west of England.
Yeah.
And we were delivering one piece of garden furniture so that we can ensure that the customer leaves a positive review, because he was having issues with DPD and FedEx. So we went there. He was really appreciative and grateful of us getting there, and we learned so much about, you know, how much we want it, and actually about the algorithm when we had those conversations, when we sat down and had lunch. And those are the times and those are the days where decisions are made, you know, life decisions are made on a dining table, you know, when you're sitting by yourself. It's not made in the middle of an exam. So when we were sitting on this table and we were talking about our plans and what we want to do, we kind of mutually knew that, you know, it's for a greater purpose. We want to have a big difference, and how we're going to get there, what tools are we going to use to get there. And slowly, we started to design our ideal life.
Yeah. You talk about exams. I think a big point in terms of sort of your mentality on like life in general comes from teachers and the way they sort of portray specific topics for you. Because I remember I had a massive love for physics, and it only came because of one of my teachers. The way they taught physics to me just fascinated me so much, and I was just like in awe. It was like talking to me about certain theories and stuff like that, and I was just like, wow, physics is amazing. And I think teachers has a big role to play in sort of shaping your future and your outlook on not just like the specific topic at hand, but even from a monetary standpoint. Like, they could teach you so much about life and values, and they can share stories of their own life, and it can motivate you so much. I remember even a funny story, like when I used to do exams for certain topics or subjects, I would feel pressured to do well because I liked that teacher so much. I didn't want them to look bad on the school system and stuff like that. It's just those sort of things can change your life so much, and teachers have such a large role to play.
It's powerful if someone can explain a complicated concept very simply and simplify it and make them understand how you're thinking about something. I think communication is key, and especially when you look at teachers shaping our lives, those teachers were very good at communicating, and they were very well educated and informed on the subjects they were teaching. So they were able to explain things in a way where it was, number one, fun, and number two, understandable.
Yeah, did you have any like teachers at school that were just like, do you remember you had a business teacher? Were you ever close with that business teacher, or any other teachers that you were just really inspired by, or not really?
I think there was one business teacher who I was inspired by because he actually had a business.
Really?
Most teachers, or university lecturers, who are teaching business actually haven't even started a business. So therefore, why are they even credible in the first place to teach? And I think that's very important too, is to recognize that, who are you learning from? Do you want to be like that person? And of course, you can take little snippets away from everybody that you can learn from. But this teacher who I was inspired by actually had, a backbone there. He was semi-retired. He had done his career. He had made his money, but he actually had a passion for teaching, and you could feel that in the way he spoke when he put on his PowerPoints. It was fueled differently, not just because he wanted to get paid or he was there by force. It was there because he actually wanted to teach people and make it interactive and share his knowledge, share his experiences. And it was very lucky to have him in the classroom because he was only there on a part-time basis.
Yeah. Do you think teaching changes from like a university to a secondary school standpoint?
For me, A-levels was 10 times harder than my university degree. I fell in love with economics when I studied it at A-levels. I found it to be a subject that was very applicable to the real world. You look at the news, you can relate that to economics. You see how money goes around the world and around the economy. And it really opened my awareness into how money works. But then when I went to university, the course was very different. There were different modules we had to select, and it was very maths focused. So for me, I enjoyed my A-levels more than actually going to university, and basically felt like I was studying maths.
Yeah. I remember when I was at university, I thought when I studied engineering, I'd be able to like leave and I could like fix anything, and I was like going to be the ultimate handyman. But it didn't really work out like that. I was more, like you said, just maths focused, and those sort of skills that I thought I was going to learn was going to be more learned in the workplace. That's one thing I realized. So it was a bit weird, like for me coming out of the job, but yeah. Do you want? Should we wrap up the episode here? I mean, we've talked about like.
Yeah, I mean, last question for you I have, Zach, actually, is, growing up in Essex.
Yeah.
If you weren't to grow up in Essex, like the way you have, do you think you'd be a completely different person if you were to grow up in a different country? Where would that be, and how would you be a completely different person, and why?
I think a large part of who I am, like I always say, came from my parents. So if my parents were the same people, despite of where I grew up, I would probably be in a very similar position, because the values that they taught me will still be the same values. And the reason why I do a lot of my things is for that sort of family aspect. I mean, from a standpoint of who I've met and who I continue to meet in this area and through this little network I've had, also play a major role. So, for example, if I wouldn't have met you, I would probably be a lot less progressed in my story, because you've obviously influenced me a lot and pushed me a lot in a lot of my decisions that I've made. Same to do in my relationship. There obviously is a large motivation to why I'm here and in this position. in that regards, I think yes, I would probably be a lot less progressed in my journey because of the sort of people that you hang around with. Like we keep on emphasizing, they definitely do play a major role in progressing you, whether it's in the gym, if you say like you can do an extra rep, or are you coming in the morning and I don't feel like going, but because you're there I will go there, or whether it's making a business decision and you sort of have another look on, like having another opinion on whether it's a TikTok or a business idea or a podcast episode, can shift your whole mentality and make it so much more efficient, because two eyes is better than one in most regards, in almost every regard. So from that standpoint, I would say yes and no, because you guys, friendship-wise, have influenced me so much. So yeah, I mean, good question.
That's a very good answer as well. Explained that very well. And, it's not just the basic answer of, different country, different person.
Yeah.
I think that you're correct in when your parents are going to be the same people, those values will stay with you. And ultimately, I think that you would be the same person, but it would just be around different people.
Thank you. I mean, I assume your answer would be very similar if I was to
Yeah, 100%.
But I think that wraps up the episode for episode 3. I'm excited to record episode 4. We have a lot of good topics to talk about. And thank you for watching till the end.